welcome to the Lineup HQ Crunch Time Grinders live show. I have no idea what we call this show. But we're before lock of the NFL 3-game Saturday slate for Week 16. I'm Jordan Cooper, aka Blender HD, joined by Eric Bimefor on Twitter for what it's a very busy day in sports now that we have NBA back. We got a 3-game Saturday slate. We got crunch time later for the 9-game NBA slate. I played soccer slate this morning. Hopefully I make money that I didn't play El Ghazi in cash. Whatever. No one cares about soccer. I had to do some late swaps in order to catch up in some of my lineups. But we're here. We're 35 minutes before 1 p.m. lock for the 3-game NFL slate. We got Tampa Bay at Detroit, 49ers at Arizona Cardinals, Dolphins at the Raiders. Based on our ownership and based on, obviously, the projections, we see normally a lot of times on these 3-gamer slates that DraftKings softens up the pricing, and it is soft. But I'm going to guess that I would say the most popular game is the first game, Tampa Bay at Detroit. The most popular pieces are in the second game, San Francisco at Arizona, and then the lowest owned game is the Dolphins at the Raiders. And I say pieces because I think Murray, Hopkins, Ayuk, Wilson, I don't think the stacks are as much in play. I think there are many more good pieces in the Tampa Bay Detroit game. Do you have the same assessment, Eric?
Pretty much. I do think the Brady, we run into this so much with Tampa Bay that the Brady stacks are also really hard to build, even on a 3-game slate, because you have, first of all, you have Leonard Fournette, who we project to be the highest owned running back.
Do you like that? Do you like Uncle Lenny as the highest owned? Are you going to play any?
I like it because I'm not going to play him.
Okay.
So, but I do think he's. I mean, it's Detroit. He's going to play a lot. So I get it. I'm not arguing with why he's the best play, but I do think that fact combined with it is difficult to stack Tom Brady. So that makes me sick to my stomach. Or waking up the day after Christmas and I'm going to be talking positively about Tom Brady and Tom Brady stacks. But I think it's possible that those stacks, if you just look at our raw ownership, those stacks are a little less owned than maybe it might seem based on the ownership, just because it's, like you said, the pricing is really loose. So if you want Kyler, you want Kyler and Hopkins, you can get Kyler and Hopkins. And even Christian Kirk, if you want to tag along another guy onto your stacks of that game, Christian Kirk is super cheap. And people, I'm not saying they shouldn't. People love Christian Kirk. His ownership has been kind of crazy all year for a guy that gets maybe 4 or 5 targets. But anyway, I actually think the first game, outside of the last game, which is more of your speed vomit stack style, I do think the first game is maybe the highest leverage in terms of win probability versus ownership. I just don't think people love to click Tom Brady. We do have a punt quarterback if you want to go down to a CJ Beathard, and then you have Kyler, which is just, getting Kyler on a 3-game slate, given the other options. I think that's kind of where I mostly agree with you, but I do think the first game for game stacking purposes and mega stacking purposes comes in lower than the second one.
That's what I'm thinking. I built 5 lineups for today. That's it. I got too much stuff going on. I'm building 5 GPP lineups. That's it. I'm playing. My quarterbacks are Brady and Stafford.
Yep.
Essentially, I'm doing the good old Slate IQ trick, right? With the Eric, right? You do the Slate IQ stuff here on premium content here on Rotogrinders. Sign up for that. I mean, it's $10 off your first month with the link in the YouTube description. You could just sign up for NBA. You could have the whole package with everything all in one. But you come out with premium content with for a lot of the showdowns, short slates, things like this. And the highest leverage stack for these types of slates is typically quarterback with running back with wide receiver with tight end. A stack that people tend not to play the quarterback and the running back together. People don't like the super stack. They're I think I have too many. So like I have a lot of lineups that are Stafford, Swift, Jones, Hawkinson, and then 2 Buccaneers, then Fournette and Evan. And then it's like my flex is some guy from another game. And like that's it. And the defense from some other game, something like that. So most of my lineups are that. The problem with those lineups a lot of times is that you could still play DeAndre Hopkins in them. Like like if you're playing the Millie, the $25 contest, consider leaving money on the table because you obviously can. What I'm planning on doing, since I'm pretty much stacking the first game, so like my optionality is limited. I'm hoping that the first game goes off, and then I have 5 lineups that I could now find the right piece or 2 from the other 2 games, swap around because I have Hopkins in like 2 of those lineups. I could always go down. I could always go up, go down, do anything I want. And obviously, if the first game duds, then I'm just done for the day. I don't have to worry about it, right?
Right.
My day's over,
NBA,
right?
On to NBA, yeah.
Right. If that game goes 17-7, I just there you go. Okay, that's about it for me. But I think you're right. I think even though the individual ownership of the players in that game are fairly high, there's just a lot of pieces there. So like people will have 2 or 3 pieces, but they may not have 5 or 6 pieces together from that game. And that game does have the highest total at 54 and a half. I just think that if you get Brady or Stafford if you get anyone other than Kyler as the highest scoring quarterback, like you have so much insane leverage. Like Hopkins is 70% owned. Kyler's going to be 40+% owned. If both Kyler and Hopkins bust, like that's like the cash line at that point. Like you almost secured a minimum cash at I mean, like just by not having them. So like that is my approach on this slate. But obviously, my style, you would lead to like what about the Dolphins and the Raiders? And I just take a look at that game, and the number of plays in comparison to the other 2 games are just so much lower than the other 2 that I think pieces in that game can get there. But I'm just wary of super stacking it, right? Yeah. Because like Carr plus Aguilar plus Waller plus Jacobs, I mean, it's the same price as like the Tampa Bay Detroit guys. And like,
exactly.
Like, why don't I just do that?
It's not like you're getting, and it's a 3-game slate, so it matters less. But even like if it was a main slate, it's not like you're getting, sometimes those lower projected and even lower ceiling stacks can be really advantageous because you can get, right, Travis Kelce and Devontae Adams and whatever around this super cheap stack. So they only have to score 24 points or whatever, and you can still win a tournament with them. That's not the case today. The pricing is you're not struggling to get DeAndre Hopkins or whoever you want into your lineup, and the pricing on the Dolphins and the Raiders specifically is not so great that you're getting any sort of benefit. The other issue with that game, I thought a little bit about the Tua side, the Dolphins side, because the Raiders defense is just so bad that I am typically interested in something like that on a short slate. But the biggest issue is optionality, but it could bury you. So like, if you're playing some darts into the big Millie maker, I don't think it's totally unreasonable to stack up the Dolphins a little bit and maybe bring it back with Waller or something like that, where, we see sometimes the Raiders just fall behind and Waller catches 15 passes. But Devontae Parker is questionable. Mike Gesicki is questionable. Jakeem Grant is questionable. So if those guys are all out again, which like we got on last Sunday, you're just like, I mean, you're playing a really, really suboptimal lineup and leaving thousands and thousands of dollars on the table because you're playing Lynn Bowden and I don't even know, Mac Hollins or what, Durham Smythe, whatever. So it's just really hard to play the Dolphins game. I don't think it's totally unreasonable, but I would reserve it for like total lotto shots where you pretty much know you're probably donating, but I don't think it's absolutely ridiculous on the Dolphins side.
Yeah, and if you're in the YouTube chat, we could see you. Hit that thumbs up button. Hit the thumbs up. Hit the subscribe button. Hit whatever you want. If you have any questions, feel free to post it there. We'll be periodically going through them. Don't worry about that. The questions on this slate, obviously, in the late game. In the late game, I'm just going to assume that since the Dolphins did not call up guys from the practice squad, that all these Q guys, Parker, Gazecki, Grant, they're going to be in? And what is your feeling? I mean, I typically don't ask about feelings, but like how limited I go back. This is what I do with Shanahan. Okay. I go back to that slate earlier in the year, right? Jordan Reed is going to be on a snap count, 10 to 15 maximum. And he goes out, he ends up playing like 20, 22 snaps. He gets 2 touchdowns. So George Kittle's 5,000. Normally, George Kittle would be on this type of slate, he'd be 7,800.
Yep.
Do you think Shanahan is playing mind games? Do you think he's actually limited? Or do you think it's the type of thing that it's possible, just like with Jordan Reed earlier in the year, that Kittle may only play 20 snaps, but obviously if he's out on the field, he's going to be the number 1 target anyway. So even though he may be on the snap count, the value of his touches is still going to be much higher.
Right.
And he's not going to be as owned as he should be at 5,000.
That is definitely where I lean. So it's this weird thing where people are like, do you believe Shanahan that Kittle is going to be limited? Yes, I do. I absolutely do. You know, George Kittle is like an every down tight end. And the reason why he's so good is because he's such a good blocker. Like, we care about his receiving for fantasy, but like, he's one of the best players in the NFL because he's just a stud blocker and a stud receiver. So I don't think he's going to play his normal George Kittle role. But to your point, I'm not sure that matters because, you know, it is tight end. I do think, small caveat to any of this, I do think tight end is kind of strong for a 3-game slate. So that throws a little bit of a wrench into things. But I think George Kittle playing 30 snaps and they're all passing downs and he's in the red zone, like you said, the Jordan Reed thing, he could easily be the highest scoring tight end. So he's the thing I'm struggling with the most. I guess maybe Myles Gaskin is a little bit kind of the same thing. I'm struggling with what his role would be, because I think those are 2 guys that you can take a stand on one way or the other that can make or break your slate. Because if the field doesn't think that George Kittle is going to play enough to matter, A, they could be wrong, and B, they could be right and he still catches 8 passes for 80 yards and a touchdown or whatever. So I'm really, really torn on Kittle. I lean towards the side of he's going to be playing like all the high value snaps. So for fantasy, we shouldn't be too concerned about him. And then just plugging in the Gaskin thing, I think Myles Gaskin is really interesting too. Running back is actually, again, not that bad. And I think that the Kittle and Gaskin things are like polar opposites when we look at our projected ownership. People seem to be buying Gaskin and expecting that he's going to come back in as in, you know, he's been such a plug and play for like a free 15 points every week. And the matchup is good, whatever. But I'm not sold that that Salvon Ahmed is just going to go away. Gaskin was the workhorse throughout most of the year because they didn't have anybody else. Now that they have bodies, and Ahmed has clearly proven that when he's active, he's a good player. So I kind of think I would side with, if I'm betting on one of these, you know, questionable, sketchy guys, I really do like George Kittle, and I kind of want to get away from Myles Gaskin. So that's kind of your question plus a little bit more, but similar style plays, I think, on this slate that are important.
Right. That's how I viewed it also. So I have Kittle in my 5 lineups. I have 2 Kittle lineups, and I have 0 Myles Gaskin.
Yep.
So based on my lineups, being that I'm playing Stafford and Brady, like, to me, the running back position is fairly strong for a 3-game slate. A lot of times we look at running back on 3-game, 2-game, 3-game slates and go, oh, we have to play 2 of these guys.
Right.
I think Wilson with Mostert on the IR is fine, but 49ers, they could jumble their running backs a million different ways. Fournette against the Lions, I mean, he's going to be chalk. Jacobs is solid. I put him as a meh. Like, he's okay. Yep. He's fine. Swift, high upside. I don't want to call him my favorite running back up play on the slate, but he's the one that I'm playing in my lineups. But remember, I'm not playing Kyler Murray. So the most negatively correlated player to Kyler Murray is Kenyon Drake. Mm-hmm. Because if Kyler's going to run, if they're going to have these 1 yard, 3 yard touchdowns, Drake's going to be the one that takes it away from Kyler Murray. So at 13% projected ownership, like to me, he makes the most sense in my lineups. He doesn't project. He's 1, 2, 3, 4. If we go by RGV, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. He's the 7th running back projected on the slate. I mean, obviously, it's a 3-game slate. There's only so many running backs. So 7 is not that high. But at 5,200, he's 100 less than Gaskin. So if we take a look here, if Gaskin's going to be 40% and Drake's going to be 13%, like how often is Drake going to beat Gaskin? Is Gaskin going to beat him out three times as many? No. And then you take a look at Fournette, and he's 56%. Is Drake going to Fournette going to beat out Drake? 4 times as often? No. So to me, I look at that, and Drake's floor is low.
Yeah.
Right. I know his floor is low, but he has 3 touchdown upside. I mean, like he could pull the good old, pass interference in the end zone and he runs it in type of stuff. He could still catch a couple.
We call that the Leonard Fournette.
Right. He can catch a couple of passes out of the backfield. He can. So it's not that I want to make it clear. I don't like Kenyon Drake. Like if you're playing today, who's the best player running back? He's nowhere close. But in the lineups that I'm playing, where I'm betting, my lineups are betting on the fact that Kyler Murray fails. Do I think Kyler Murray fails? No, he's the highest probability quarterback on the slate. I get that. But for large field GPPs, how do I gain the most amount of relative value on this slate? By fading Kyler and fading Hopkins. And then even if they put up decent, if Kyler has 22 and Hopkins has 20, like I could still beat those lineups. So it's not like they have to put up snowflakes. Just that underperform. To me, that's the clearer path to first place than building lineups with just understand. A lot of people on these slates, what they're going to do is they're going to take Kyler Murray, DeAndre Hopkins, Leonard Fournette. They're going to start fitting in pieces. And then they're either going to have a duplicated lineup because they're going to use all their salary, or they're going to try to find someone. They're going to go, I'm going to take a flyer on like some 4th receiver, right? They're going to be taking Richie James or Quintus Cephas, or, they're going to try to find the one guy that catches some ridiculous pass or something, and hopefully they get there in one play. But you don't, even on 3-game slates, you don't need those guys, but you need those guys in those types of lineups. In order for you to win first place with a chalky Murray Hopkins stack, you're going to have to find some 2% owned guy that comes out of nowhere. In my lineups, I don't, because I'm relying on the fact is that the 70%. Look at the people I'm fading in my lineup. I'm based on projected ownership. 38% own Kyler. I'm fading 70% own Hopkins. I'm probably fading 42% own Ayuk. I'm fading 48% own Jacobs. 40% own Gaskin. So look at all that ownership. If I have none of those guys in my lineup and they snowflake, how many points do I need? I don't need 200 points, right? I could win a GPP with 170 or something today. So, I mean, that's the concept. I always want to highlight, especially on these before lock type of shows, that, these aren't my plays. It's just, this is the strategy that I'm taking for this slate. And you could choose to not. You could say, I'm like Eric. If you want to build a Tua stack, go ahead and build a Stewart stack. But it's the same concept. You're not building it because you think Tua is going to crush. You're doing it because you're hoping that the wrong side of variance for Kyler and Hopkins happens, and 18 points from Tua may be in the winning lineup.
Right, and you're like you said, you're basically just betting against what your opponents are doing and trying to win the slate when it's lower scoring, right? If all those guys you just mentioned put up huge days, have Alvin Kamara on us and score 1 million touchdowns, on the winning slate, it's probably going to be higher scoring than the main slate tomorrow, because everybody's going to have 50, 60, 70% owned players, and they're going for 30, 40 fantasy points. I don't want to say you're not going to win those. Those are the most difficult slates to win, because it comes down to everybody has a 2v2, right? There's hundreds or thousands of lineups that you're just coin flipping a couple of guys. So when you're playing this style like you're talking about, or right, if Tua is your preference or whatever, the style that I think you and I are mostly playing, and the Kenyon Drake thing is the best example, right? You're not even asking for Kenyon Drake to score 35 fantasy points. You're just asking him to steal 2 touchdowns away from Kyler Murray, and then your quarterback beats Kyler Murray by a few points. Kenyon Drake, because he stole those touchdowns.
And he also stole touchdowns from DeAndre Hopkins, probably also.
Exactly. So he's stealing touchdowns away from everyone who your opponents have. And then you're getting it at a running back position that is, I agree, relatively strong today. But generally, if you get 2 touchdowns from your running back on a 3-game slate, you're set. The other thing about Kenyon Drake that it was a stone cold lock, I think, coming into. I knew what we were going to be like on the same page about it. And it was that first game, that the game that we're stacking, and Kenyon Drake. And the other interesting thing about Kenyon Drake, I don't think this is going to come true, but Chase Edmonds is questionable, and he does have an ankle injury. And Chase Edmonds is a huge, if you're a Kenyon Drake truther or something, if those even exist, he's a huge thorn in the side of Kenyon Drake. He's probably a better football player. He steals a ton of receiving work and a lot of snaps. So if Chase, if we knew right now Chase Edmonds was out, Kenyon Drake would not be the 6th or 7th highest owned running back on it, because he's going to play almost every snap.
Right. He also wouldn't be the 6th or 7th projected running back either. Right. I mean, his projection would go up.
So I'm not, it's probably going to come around to that inactives, and Chase Edmonds is in. But it's also conceivable that he sees less snaps on a short week with an ankle injury. There's just paths outside of strictly leverage. Drake is obviously to me the clearest leverage play on the slate. But outside of just strict leverage, there's actual real paths. We're not just scratching off a lottery ticket and praying for touchdown variance. There are actual, if you want to get your hand in the dirt, reasons for Kenyon Drake to be maybe a better play than he projects right now.
Well, he's the anti-Gaskin. It seems like the field is going Gaskin. People, it seems, based on the projected ownership, aren't weighing the downside of Salvin Ahmed and Breida and the other running backs there. He's healthy. He's going to come back and play 80% of the snaps like he did before. Mm-hmm. They're just assuming that. And people are assuming with Drake going, oh, he's going to see half the snaps and Edmonds is going to vulture stuff. It's that the whole point of playing DFS is to leverage against what the market is thinking. They're overconfident in certain things that there's way more variance than people realize. So yes, if everyone thought the opposite, if let's say Chase Edmonds was doubtful or something, very close to not playing, you would see this ownership flip, right? You would see if Gaskin was 10% owned because people are scared. Oh, well, Ahmed had a great game last week, so maybe he still gets in, and he's sitting there 10%. I play all the Gaskin. Yep. Right. I do this. So I always want to highlight that the plays aren't the plays because I think they're going to do well. It's a probability based on ownership of the field is overconfident in one, underconfident in another. It's the same thing that you said with people don't want to click on Tom Brady. He's going to be the 2nd highest owned quarterback on the slate. I mean, we still have in this game, we still have Godwin and Brown and Evans are all going to come in around 30% owned. Marvin Jones is going to come in around 33% owned. I think I would put, I don't think, or maybe you disagree. Even with Kittle being limited, it has to affect Ayuk to some degree, to some minimal degree, because when Kittle's on the field, he's going to be the number 1 target and not Ayuk. And for him to be 42% owned on a 3-game slate, the 2nd highest owned wide receiver at 6,700, I think people are not necessarily considering the fact that his touchdown equity goes down, right? Because you have to figure that Kittle's going to be in and on red zone plays, right? Oh, yeah. So his touchdown equity goes down. Obviously, it's factored in his projection. In the blitz right now, Ayuk actually comes out rated underneath Brown and Evans. Mm-hmm. We have Marvin Jones, the blitz at least, has Marvin Jones number 1, Hopkins, then Evans, then Brown, then Ayuk. So, but if you take a look at the ownership, Ayuk is more owned than Jones and Evans and Brown. And probably the reason for his projections because it's projecting Kittle for 20 snaps at least. And I don't think the field realizes that.
I think it's actually, there's multiple factors that the field is not factoring in with Ayuk, because I think this is one of the rare examples of a game log kind of chase, if you will. Which hasn't really, people have gotten smarter. People have focused on projections a little bit more. But I think Ayuk is a pretty strong example of that, where people are not factoring in George Kittle being back enough, especially like at that price. And I mentioned it, or you've mentioned it at every position. Again, wide receiver is pretty strong. Like this 3-game slate has quite a few really strong plays at every position. So you're not just saying, oh, okay, well, even if I'm a little wrong on Ayuk, his raw point, he's going to get double digits, whatever. So I feel good about it, and I feel good about his upside. There is opportunity cost at every single position today. The other thing that, you look at his game logs and they look pretty, right? The double digit targets and all these fantasy points. It could absolutely go awry today. They've gotten crushed for a month and a half. If you look at every single one of those games, they're losing. They got whooped by the Cowboys last week. Like they're getting destroyed, and they're throwing 45. I mean, Nick freaking Mullins is throwing, 45, 40, 40. Like he's throwing 40 times a week. So yeah, his target share is still really nice in those games, but they're falling behind and they're having to chuck it. The 49ers certainly don't want to fall behind. They also don't want to be this throw it 40 times a week. And I know CJ Beathard's in there now. But he also has the good old shower narrative with George Kittle, right? When George Kittle's out there, we're gonna feed George Kittle because we're buddies, right? Just go on Twitter. That's what everybody will tell you. But I think there's a lot of factors here that make Ayuk like, there's no such really necessarily thing as a bad play, but at his ownership, like if you're not being thoughtful about how you're building your teams and you're just saying, oh, look, he's been crushing every single week and not factoring in like what you mentioned with Kittle, some of the game environment things that have happened to them, and just a lot more volatility in his projection than I think people will give it credit for. So yeah, I'm like he's definitely a stand that I'm taking, and if he blows up, he blows up. But I feel actually really good about that leverage point on this slate, like much more so than like say Kenyon Drake. Nobody really likes playing Kenyon Drake, even if the thought is good. But I feel strong about that leverage point with Ayuk today.
So is your leverage point off Ayuk to play more Kittle, or to play Kendrick Bourne, or to just not play the 49ers?
Well, I really want to play Jeff Wilson. I think Jeff Wilson is actually, given the ownership, my favorite running back, because we talked about it with multiple guys on this slate. It's funny how there's a lot of these types of situations on this slate, right? Raheem Mostert is out, but if you look at our ownership, Jeff Wilson projects for the 5th highest owned running back. And I know that there's uncertainty, and right, I'm not projecting what I know is going to happen, or I'm not saying I know Jeff Wilson is just going to be the workhorse or whatever. But we've also seen without Mostert, Jeff Wilson has been a workhorse before. They have not shown a lot of interest in playing Jerick McKinnon or Tevin Coleman unless it is absolutely necessary. So they had JaMychal Hasty, right, and then he's gone. So I think there's just as much of a path to him being a true workhorse in a good matchup in an offense where we want that running back, right? 49ers running back every week. If we had one guy being the guy, it'd be fantasy gold, because their running backs are so valuable. But there's just always that murkiness that people stay away. And I think on the 3-game slate, I want to bet on the guy that I think has the path to the workhorse role, but everybody else is scared away from, right? So it's like the anti-Gaskin type of thing. So, and I think if they want to have success, CJ Beathard is fine. Like, shout out, Big T's probably got 100% CJ Beathard today, right, from his past wins. But I think if they want to try to win today, it's more so on the ground. And I think Jeff Wilson's like the best option for that. So just kind of, anti-Gaskin, a little bit anti-49ers passing game, even though I think people are really interested in their passing game.
Right. And Raymond Rumsey in chat is asking about a double tight end build, which I don't mind, because tight end is actually a fairly strong position.
Yep. Yeah. I mean, think about on a normal like 3-game slate, if you said you could easily fit Darren Waller and George Kittle, like, yeah, you would be, yeah, of course you can.
Right. We're not talking about a 2-game slate where it's like, well, I have to play Jordan Akins and Anthony Ferkser because who else is available at tight end? It's all garbage tight ends. So you could play double tight end. Donnie Watson asks for a question on DraftKings. In a 20,000 field 20 max contest, if I have a Tampa Bay stack with 2 Detroit guys, with Ahmed and Drake, would you take the safety with Ayuk's targets, or would Kittle be a better play there? Basically, he's asking, which I agree with, is if you play Salvin Ahmed and Kenyon Drake as your 2 running backs, you have enough leverage.
Yes, more than enough. More than enough.
Right. At that point, just play the chalk in that lineup.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, you have 3 separated games on an island. So see what happens.
Mm-hmm.
Right. You'll know what to do. So yeah, obviously you're playing 2 running backs from a game that's not the first game, and you're playing you're essentially playing the passing game of the first game. So if that passing game goes off, then look at your lineup and go, do I let me just start jamming in the chalk at that point, right? You can do that. I don't know if you're playing on FanDuel, Eric. I'm not. So I have no idea. I don't even know what the pricing is over at FanDuel. But Joseph Colgan is asking 3 running backs on FanDuel. I don't know what their pricing is.
You can do it. It's a little bit different. That draft, it's actually weird. I don't want to say it's tighter, but it kind of is. So you can't just jam Kyler and Hopkins and Ayuk and Waller and whatever. Like you kind of can on DraftKings if you really want to. Also, like Leonard Fournette is 7,000. So Josh Jacobs is the most expensive running back at 7,600, and then Leonard Fournette is 7,000. So he's not quite the strong value play.
How much is Wilson over there?
6,000.
Right. Yeah. I don't know. I mean, based on the pricing over there, the problem with FanDuel is that you don't get like full point PPR in the bonuses. So playing the wide receiver in the flex is a little less value. So I'm more likely to get touchdown equity over PPR value. And it's not like on this slate that we have like the greatest PPR running backs. So I mean, obviously 3 running backs is viable. I think FanDuel, if you're playing GPPs, try to get the touchdowns. If you can get all the touchdowns on this slate, you win on FanDuel. Yep. On DraftKings, you could have a guy that doesn't get a touchdown that still has 26 points. So, like, you don't need all the touchdowns, right? If you don't have the vulture Devontae Booker touchdown or the Kyle Juszczyk touchdown, like that's not going to kill you on DraftKings. I mean, I don't know if you even play those guys on FanDuel, but at least they're more viable.
Yeah.
FanDuel.
Yeah. To answer the question, sorry, I was kind of looking through some of the running backs. Yeah, there's a lot of playable running backs. I think it's a little tougher to fit if you want some of the receivers that we, definitely if you want DeAndre Hopkins, and then if you're doing things like Buccaneers stacking and stuff, those receivers are not quite as easy to fit. So I do think it gets a little bit tougher. Sometimes you need somebody down in like the 5K range, or if you really just want to punt off tight end, I guess, or something. It is a little tougher on FanDuel. So, if you have somebody that you love that's a little bit cheaper that can allow you to fit them, then by all means. Christian Kirk is really cheap over there, so I think that might elevate his ownership too.
Bradley C asks, do you trust Swift against the Bucs? I do, because the Buccaneers defense is not very good.
Yeah, the interesting thing about Swift is that I don't expect that he's going to have any success on the ground, but I don't think that matters. And especially in game stacks of that game, like I actually don't think I want DeAndre Swift to be, grinding out 6 yards a carry. I want them to probably fall behind, and then AP goes and rides the pine, and DeAndre Swift catches like 8 balls for 2 touchdowns or whatever. So I like Swift.
Right. I prefer Swift is more of a DraftKings play than a FanDuel play.
Yeah, definitely, because you need, the more rushing, success, if you will, on FanDuel.
Okay, going through. If you got any questions in the YouTube chat, we're 4 minutes until lock. Hit that thumbs up button, hit the subscribe button, hit the notification bell to let you know when we're live. Of course, Pop 6870 has to ask the question, most important question on the slate. Who do I like in the DST spot? Doesn't matter. And also on 3-game slates, on slates like this, play the defense against your opponent. I mean, it does. Ceilings for defenses, I always say, come down to touchdowns or shutouts, obviously. But, I mean, that doesn't happen as often. So it's quite possible that you could play Tom Brady and the Lions defense. I mean, Lions pick him off and run it back for a pick 6. Well, Brady just gets the ball back to accumulate more points. So, to me, the defense doesn't matter. You know what the defense I'm playing the most of? The Raiders.
Nah. Yeah.
But I mean, I could switch. The Raiders and the Cardinals. Well, I'm playing the Cardinals because Cardinals is a leverage defense because people tend to not want to play. Like, they're not going to play Kyler Murray, DeAndre Hopkins, and the Cardinals defense.
Right.
And they're 3,300, and they make sense in my Kenyon Drake lineups, right? I mean, like that's the game script for Kyler Murray floor game, for a DeAndre Hopkins floor game. That the Cardinals, end up, 3 interceptions on Beathard, 4 sacks, maybe not even a pick 6, but they get the ball back so often with short fields. And Kenyon Drake's just taking the ball in the red zone and running it in 2 or 3 times. And everyone with the Kyler Murray, DeAndre Hopkins stats are going, they're like closing their laptop. Time to make my Sunday lineups.
Yeah, I think the defenses in that game are probably the highest leveraged, Cardinals and 49ers. Mostly both because, the Kyler, Hopkins, all that kind of ownership. Even Ayuk, same thing. If you get defensive scores or multiple defensive scores from either of those guys, obviously it's hurting tons of different chalk, hurting the game, whatever. So I think those 2 defenses are super interesting. If you can fit the Dolphins or the Bucks, by all means, they're maybe I guess the strongest projected plays.
And Leonardo Martinez. Hopkins a must play. I don't like those terms, must play, but he's probably in your cash lineup.
Yeah, I think he's definitely in your cash lineup.
Right. I mean, it's on DraftKings. You could fit everyone you want. I mean, they're
right.
How do you not play DeAndre Hopkins at 8,300 when you could fit everyone? I mean, he's the highest raw point skill position player outside of Kyler that's on the slate. So get your points in cash games. Yep. But he's obviously at 70% projected ownership. He's completely fadeable in GPPs. But I don't like you know me, Eric. I don't like the terms must play, lock.
Yep.
It all depends on the lineup that you're building for the contest that you're playing. You're playing double ups, it's one thing. You're playing large field GPPs, it's another thing. You're playing single entry, small field, it's a completely different story. Which is kind of weird on 3-game slates, Eric, that the most leveraged type of lineups are lineups that are more viable on main slates in small field contests.
Yeah,
right. Like when you capture a game. Typically, they don't have enough ceiling when there's 10 games on a slate, but it's kind of odd that people don't do that enough for large field contests on slates this size.
Right. I that's what we talked last week. I don't know. NFL season's throwing me off. I can't keep my days and stuff together. But we talked last week that like these slates have become, maybe they always were, but focusing on them more, they become super interesting. And just the strategies, like really basic stuff like we talked about. Like as long as you're willing to like get uncomfortable, like I get clicking Kenyon Drake's not very fun. As long as you're willing to get uncomfortable a little bit on these slates, there's a lot of really like easy, I guess, easy in order to do. It's not always easy in order to win with, but there's easy, simple strategies to make like really strong tournament teams on these slates, and you don't have to do absurd things. And I think people
we saw last week, like, play 5 Bills, you're done, you're good.
Yep.
But people don't do. They go, I think I'm playing too many of them. Well, like, you're probably not playing enough of them.
Yeah, exactly.
But that's what the whole goal in GPPs is, to increase the variance of your lineup. And those lineups have immense amount of variance, because let's say the Bills last week put up a rotten egg. Well, your lineup's dead. Your lineup's in literally last place, right? So you're going for first and last. So that's why I'm betting on this first game. If this first game goes nuclear, I'm in a good spot to win. If it doesn't, then I don't win. Then I just don't win. I don't even cash. I get no money. It's a 0, big fat 0, and then I just move on, right? But I'm trying to put myself in the best position to win first place. And I believe it's with the first game stack, and Kenyon Drake is leverage off of the second game stack. And you know what's going to end up happening? Derek Carr is going to put up 400 yards and 3 touchdowns.
Yep, that's correct.
Against the Dolphins defense.
Yeah, one of the best defenses in the NFL.
Right.
Against one of the worst quarterbacks, and he's gonna throw for.
Oh no, it's gonna be Marcus Mariota again.
Oh yeah. Well, if Mariota was in, maybe we would be playing him. But yeah,
he would be cheap, and he has rushing upside.
Exactly.
He'd be viable. Okay, so we're at lock. We covered the 3-game NFL slate for today. We got NBA Crunch Time for premium members. I believe it's just for premium members later today. Some other premium content. We got the ownership report, the Blitz show. There's tournament takes. That's a free show. That'll be on the podcast feed. for Rotogrinders on the Daily Fantasy Football podcast feed. So check that out. Tomorrow morning here on YouTube, starting at 10 in the morning, we got Dean on, we got Tambo, Lineuphq HQ Build Show, we got Crunch Time with Roth, we got tons of programming for tomorrow's Sunday slate, as well as the NBA stuff coming up. We got tons of everything. So subscribe to the YouTube channel, hit that thumbs up button, sign up for premium. I'm always in the premium Discord, almost too much for my own sanity sometimes. So if you sign up for premium and you want to just ask questions about strategy, I'm in the NBA channel. I'm in the NFL channel. It could be 3 a.m. sometimes. People are asking questions and I'm talking or whatever. We sweat the games, whatever. So sign up for premium. You get $10 off your first month. You could choose a single sport. You could choose all in one, but go to rotogrinders.com/premium or click on the link in the YouTube description. So for Eric Bimefor, at Eric Bimefor on Twitter, I'm Jordan Cooper at BlenderEd, Blender HD on Twitter. And that's been the, I don't know, what are we calling the show? What do we call it? The Crunch Time Lineup HQ Grinders Live show, maybe on rotogrinders.com.